Good evening and welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Pack Homer Podcast. Tonight, we got with us the mayor of Apex, Mr. Sam Highfill, first politician we've had on the podcast. Glad to have you, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Good to be on.
So before we jump into this thing, just thought we'd ask you what's going on in the baseball world for you right now. I know you're in the Phillies organization. Just wanted to kind of check in and see what you're doing.
Yeah, so working out in the off season down at Octane Baseball in Raleigh, and just in the weight room a bunch, throwing a bunch of baseballs and having fun, enjoying the off season while it lasts, and then I'll go down at the end of February back to Clearwater.
Very, very cool. Sam, before we get too far into this, I did want to give you a shout out from Alex G. I don't know if you know Alex G, but he's our buddy over at IPS, and he's the biggest Sam Highfill fan ever. So I promised that when we got you on the podcast, I was going to give him a shout out. But thanks for joining us. Wanted to ask you, I know we could probably go for days about you guys getting kicked out of the College World Series. But before we get into any of those types of questions, I wanted to ask you, about what the comeback. I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. Going from a guy that played in the College World Series that was injured the following season when I think you were a preseason All-American in 2022. Going into the year, I think you had played for Team USA that summer. And you kind of lost, maybe you can explain to us, but probably felt like you were kind of losing it all when you think you pitched like 27 innings and your season was cut short. How special was it? And I'll let you talk a little bit too about the injury and the comeback, but how special was it to make a trip back to Omaha when, obviously that's never guaranteed?
Yeah, it was a long journey from I think it was March of 2023 or 22, I guess it was, when I first hurt my back. Long journey from that until this past summer getting to the College World Series. But, coming off of a good year, like you said, like preseason hype was there, and I was expecting myself to be good. And then the first few weeks, I was everything was fine. I don't think I was pitching as well as I wanted to, but, felt fine, felt good. And then one game went out, came out of the game after going like 7 or 8 against Notre Dame. And as soon as all the adrenaline wore off, like I couldn't move. And I was like I don't, I don't know what's going on right now, but it's not good. And that night I got probably 2 hours of sleep, just like could not move, could not roll over. And I was like, something's wrong. So that was a long recovery after that. It was like 6 months of pretty much nothing at all. Just pretty much walking is all I was able to do. And so that whole next spring, 2023, was just like, I don't know if this thing is going to flare back up again. And so there's a lot of doubt in my mind and just trying to overcome that injury. And I wasn't pitching well last spring. There are times where I felt like I couldn't get anybody out. And so then took that following off season going into this past spring and just tried to like better myself mentally as much as possible. Cause I knew I could do it. I knew I could get back to where we were in 2021. And fortunately we put together a great run.
So how hard is that, Sam? I think if I compare you to a guy, on last year's roster, I think we all probably, and he's a teammate of yours, obviously. If we look at like Dom last year, Dom was a guy, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're definitely more in the know than me, but we went down to the regional in Columbia, and Dom was unable to pitch down there. I think he was battling injury a little bit. He comes back his sophomore season, had a ton of hype. I think Dom may have been a preseason All-American last year, or at least was on a lot of watch lists. And he struggled a lot early in the year. How hard was that for you, to come back after the 2021 season where you're a 3.66 ERA. You're 9-2. You win a game in the College World Series, and then to come back and like you said, even before you were you got hurt, you weren't pitching the way you really wanted to. Like mentally, what is that like as a pitcher? I mean, sometimes I know you probably stand up there, you probably feel you got to feel all alone when there's 3,000 people in the stands and you're just trying to get the thing over the plate. What is that? What is that like with all the hype? As extra weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, it adds to it. I'll tell you that. Because as much as you try to zone it out and just focus on your day to day, like it's there and you hear about it and you're getting tagged in all these social media posts. It's like preseason All American, whatever. So yeah, I think for me personally that year it was tough to get off to a rough start because then I was like, well, like there's people are expecting me to be great and I can't settle for being good and I never want to anyways, but like those thoughts start to creep into your mind and you stop focusing on what's right in front of you. What do I have to do today? If you're pitching, like what do I have to do this pitch to get this guy out? You can't think about any of that other stuff. Um, and so for Dom this past year, yeah, you alluded to it. Like it's hard, and I feel like he went through a lot of the same stuff that I went through. But I know he worked a lot. Like him and Derek Smith are best friends, and like they were reading David Goggins books, just like working on their mental toughness. Like even whether it's an issue or not, like just reading about it. And David Goggins is so good at like mental toughness stuff, and I could see, especially in Derek this past year, like that paying off for him.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't realize that. D Rock, we love D Rock, so we're big fans on the podcast. We probably showed him more love than anyone early. But I mean, I do know just from my playing career, which really kind of ended in Little League, but it definitely started to fizzle out after high school. But man, I can empathize with you, kind of standing on the mound there, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's all on you. I mean, there's one ball and you're holding it. So Sam, uh, last year. Oh, and I wanted to. You just mentioned you're like, I want to be great, not good. Um, and I will say that probably when you look back at your career, and I don't think you're underappreciated anymore. I mean, hell, you got the key to the city, so I'm not going to give you but so much grace, Sam. But I went back. I had to look today to kind of see, how great this guy was. I was looking at your stats, and obviously, like we down the stretch last year. I mean, you go to Omaha. I think the thing that stood out to this group and a lot of Wolfpack Nation is that you just battled your ass off every single time you got the rock. Like, uh, sometimes you had your best stuff, sometimes you had your B or your C stuff, but you just battled your ass off. Hell, I didn't even feel like against Kentucky last year. Like early in the game, I was like, my God, is he going to make it through the third inning? And you just battle your ass off, and that's what we respect so much about you. But like when you look back at your career, you went 26-10. You pitched in Omaha twice. You had how many knocks off Kumar Rocker? I know you had three hits. Were they
Yeah,
how many
two.
of them? Two of them are off Kumar
Two.
Rocker. When you look back now, and your words, not mine. You wanted to be great, not good. Um, you have to be proud of what you accomplished at NC State.
Yeah, 100%. And like like if you look at the ERA numbers and stuff, you will not be blown away. But um, that's like you said, like my one goal every single game was to go out there and give the guys a chance to win. Um, like there were games last year where I give up 6 runs and we'd win. And it's, like I think we lost maybe two. It might have been 3 games that I started last year, and it's like there were games where I was awful, like gave up a ton of runs, and the hitters bailed me out. So the win and loss numbers are they are what they are. But that was my goal, was always keep us in games, and for the most part was able to do that.
But 26-10 is pretty damn incredible. And if you go and look at like your ERA, I know a lot of people. I think that's one of the things that frustrates me. You know, when you like look at like the casual baseball fans. You know, I'm talking to the ones that like turn on the TV when you guys like are in the regional, and you look at his ERA, and you're like, well, you know, Sam's got a 4.80 ERA. He ain't that damn good. Well, you know, you played. Like if you're going in the seventh inning every time you go out there, you're going in the sixth or seventh inning, you've thrown 110 pitches, you know, but you're maybe up 6-2, and then you get knocked around a little bit, but you turn it over to the bullpen. You know, last year, you know, the recipe happened to be if I can get us through seven, I got Duden and D Rock behind me, or, you know, Shane Van Dam for a long part of the year. But, you know, your numbers get a little inflated, but I don't think people can truly, that aren't, you know, true baseball fans can appreciate how important it is to be able to hand the ball over after, you know, 6 or 7 innings. And yeah, it hurts your numbers, because if we pull you in the fifth every time when you're up, you know, 3-1, your stat line's a lot cleaner. But the fact that you just would go out every night, every Friday night, and just battle through 6 or 7 innings, and just I mean, 26-10 speaks for itself, man. Hell of a career.
Yeah, thank
It
you.
was fun to watch, man.
Yeah, thanks. You're right. It was a good and bad thing. I mean, Coach Avens' just belief in when I was out there, just his belief that I could get through anything. Sometimes even when I didn't believe I could. But like you're talking about Kentucky game, like there's so many examples of that where I give up a few runs early, and then I just settle in. And if he didn't believe in me like that, then maybe I'm gone in the third inning. And all of a sudden 7 innings and 3 runs is 3 innings and 3 runs, and you're looking back at it being like, man, that was bad. But,
So I want to talk about a couple other guys, and Adam and Wesley, y'all better think of a
Hey,
question.
I'm just waiting on you to take a damn breather, and then we'll come in.
All right, Rich, we're going to the bullpen, baby.
Get your breath. Get your breath a minute.
Go ahead, Liz.
No, I was just going to ask a little bit. And by the way, I dropped off because my turns out like on a laptop, you got to plug it up or the battery. I had it plugged up, but not the other end of the charger. You got to do that too. So I was just going to ask Sam about how you ended up at NC State. If you want to talk a little bit about your recruitment process and how you chose to come spend all the time you did with us in Raleigh.
yeah. So I think I committed in at the end of my sophomore season of high school. But like long before that, my brother's three grades above me, and so he was the best high school hitter I'd ever seen. Like at that point in my life, like I wasn't watching all the perfect game stuff, but he was a really good high school hitter. Hit like 400 for 3 straight years, and he got like 2 offers, one from UNCW and one from Liberty. And so my expectations were like so low coming into high school. I was like, if he's not getting recruited by anybody, like my list of schools was all low mid major. And then like I started throwing hard, and people started calling. I'm like, holy cow, like I got to remake this list. And that's about when Coach Hart, he came and saw me pitch towards the end of my sophomore year. And I went on a visit and committed a week or two later. But grew up an NC State fan. Both my parents went here, some grandparents. My granddad played baseball at NC State for a year or two back in the, I don't know, 50s or 60s. But a long line of history at NC State. And so when they offered me, it's a no-brainer.
That's awesome. I thought I remembered that your parents went. That's a cool story about your granddad. Though I didn't know that.
Yeah, he also played in the Phillies organization.
Oh, really cool.
Now we have that in common too.
That's awesome.
All right, Wes, come out of the bullpen, baby. We're ready for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the biggest question I have is from, obviously appreciate your time at NC State, and obviously all three of us here are also lifelong NC State fans, and I think I have another question maybe towards the end of the podcast about that, Sam. But I want to know how did the Arkansas series in Fayetteville compare to the Omaha experience? I know for me, I wasn't in Fayetteville, and I spent a lot of time in Fayetteville with with the business that we're in and chickens and turkeys. But anyway, how did that weekend compare? From the overall experience, even to Omaha.
Yeah, it was such a roller coaster. We got there and it was you walk in that stadium and kind of blown away for a college baseball stadium, and you start to picture the 10,000 fans that are going to be there the next day. And then we got beat by a million
God,
on Friday.
God. Yeah.
The day before I'm about to take the ball, and I'm like, man, I guess we got nothing to lose. So part of me was just like freed a little bit by that, giving up so many runs, but um, through well. We won a couple of games, and I'll always say that like maybe my favorite memory of all time is dogpiling and maybe those 15 minutes afterwards on that field.
Yeah.
But it was also the other cool part about it was that was COVID year, and so we didn't have any, like, I don't know what our max attendance was at home that year. It was probably below 1,000. Um, and then we played in a regional at Louisiana Tech, and there was probably 3 or 4,000. It felt like it was packed, like so many people. And then you go to Arkansas, and it's over double that. And so it was just really cool to play in front of that environment, and then to win.
So what did Avent or whoever was the first to speak in the locker room after game one? What were the first words said in the locker room after that first game?
Well, nah, it was light. He kept it light, and it was we came here to win 2 games, and we still got to win 2 games. Like, whatever, move on. If you sit with this for any longer, then you're not going to come out tomorrow ready to play. So we did that, and then I got back to the hotel, and my brother texted me, and he's like, "Man, just go out and have fun. Like, you got nothing to lose, basically. Just have fun." I really appreciated that. So
My favorite synopsis ever of that Fayetteville regional was our buddy Austin Murr when we were at the baseball banquet last year. Austin said that they on in game 3 they called the cops, but justice was served.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
good. I forgot
And
about that.
Evan that weekend, he threw like 60 pitches on Saturday, and then came back on Sunday and threw like 40 more.
That's a good kind of lead in. Talking about Evan Justice, I think like if you ask us on the podcast, like, and I think one of the things, Sam, that we love when Sam Highfill shows some emotion, because I think you're like the consummate, like, I mean, when I was growing up and playing ball, I think our pitchers, our coaches always said, you need to have the same demeanor whether we're up 10 runs or down 10 runs, level headed, calm, cool, collected. No one should be able to turn on the game. I know you've heard all of that. You should be able to turn on the television in a 10-2 game and look on the mound at the pitcher's face and tell he's down 10-2. And a few times this year, you definitely got fired up, and I think we enjoy that. Evan Justice was like a different animal. Like that guy, like he would like come, and I think relievers typically have that in them where they they have a tendency to really really show a lot of emotion because they're in so many high leverage situations. But out of all the guys you played with, I guess Evan Justice would be probably even higher on your list. But who are some of those high energy guys that you played with over your 5 years at NC State?
And the first one that jumps out at me is Jacob Duden. He's like, I can't tell you how many pictures I've seen of him like jumping in midair and like double fist pumping at the same time, and like that's who he is all the time. He's always got a ton of energy. Evan off the field is like very stoic, very stoic. But yeah, you get him in those high leverage situations, and he shows that emotion. Like before 23, when I threw out a bullpen for the first part of the year, like I was always like none, no emotion whatsoever. Especially as a starter, I feel like there's so much game left. Like even if you get a big punch out in the fourth inning, it's like, well, there's still 5 innings left. But like if you're doing that in the eighth or ninth, it's a different feeling. And so I got to experience that a little bit more emotion that past year, and I think it carried over a little bit to this year, maybe. I'm trying to think who else might have been, but those are the guys that jump out initially.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Adam.
it was fun watching Duden as well this year.
Oh yeah,
Showing that emotion late, even that just subtle, real intense double fist pump is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it helps when you throw absolute fuel too. Like if you're throwing 86 miles an hour, you're throwing 98-mile-an-hour bolts and get fired up. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, if you look at the last 5 years of our program, I mean, it'd be hard to argue, I guess, that the three most. I mean, obviously, you talk about Evan Justice, Chris Villeman, Dom. Some guys have had some big years for us, but if you look at the last 5-6 years of the NC State baseball program, like three guys that have kind of become household names, yourself, Logan Whitaker, Matt Willison, have all just thrown so many meaningful innings for the Pack, and every single one of you have gone through some injuries. And I know Logan last year, kind of we were wondering if that guy was ever going to play again after I think it was down in Louisville. We expected him to start, and obviously he was unable to go that weekend, and he was out for over a month. I'd like to kind of get some insight on you from both of those guys, especially Matt, because Matt, I saw today, Matt threw in the inner squad today out of the Doak. A guy that last year I think everyone expected it to be Sam, Matt, and somebody, or Sam, Matt, and Witt, yeah, or Sam, Matt, and Dom, Sam, Matt, and Witt, some combination of that. But you and Witt have both moved on to pro ball now, and Matt's back, but we're also huge Whitaker fans. Can you maybe talk about, I guess, you going through injury and seeing, especially, Witt go through it at the same time as you, just let you talk a little bit about each of those guys and their careers, and then maybe what Matt's facing trying to come back from a pretty significant injury this year.
Yeah, both of them. Yeah, you're right. All three of us been through a lot. Logan, man, I don't think anybody gave him a chance, and he'll tell you that. Coach Avon will tell you that. Like, nobody gave him a chance after he came in and didn't throw an inning for his first 3 years. He was just always hurt. Pretty much everybody gave up on him but himself, and he came back and blew us all away. Like, with what he was able to do those last 2 years, it's just very admirable. And it speaks to how hard he works, and he's a great person too. And I was just really happy for him that he was able to do that. And then Matt this past year was really disappointing because we were, me and Matt we've played together for a long time. Played together in high school, not at high school, but on travel teams, rival kind of high schools in the same conference. Same freshman class, freshman year roommates. We've been together a long time. This was our last ride this past year. So to see him go down was really tough. It was about this time of year, and I just felt for him. But he's worked hard, and he's put himself in a position where he can come back and hopefully throw a lot of innings this year. And I hate it that the 2 times we're in Omaha, man. He was supposed to start that the COVID game that we played with 13 guys. But then he wasn't able to pitch, and then he was hurt this past year when we went back. So I hate that for him, but he was a huge part of both of those teams.
So let's talk a little bit about the rivalry. I think I told you before we came on I was going to ask you. So you and Matt, Apex and Holly. I live in Fuquay, so I know you played the Bengals too, probably in high school. But if you look at Apex High School and Holly Springs High School, what are you guys 10 minutes apart, maybe?
Yeah, 10, 15.
So how many times did you and Matt go at it in high school, and how many scouts were there, and what was that like? Like when you become teammates with a guy that you have like. I mean, I don't know about you. When I was in high school, like I kind of had a lot of rivals. It's kind of hard to get along with those guys because you're just trying to, get at their throat for 4 years. How many times did you guys face off against each other? You can share any details you want, but I know you guys. I know if you had damn 3 hits in the College World Series, you were a pretty good hitter. And I know Matt hit a little bit too as a freshman at NC State. So you guys were like legit two-way guys, both legit pitch. Obviously, uh, you know, great pitchers too. How many times you guys face off against each other in high school, and what was that atmosphere like? It's got to be pretty lit for a high school game.
Yeah, it was good. They were always good games. His high school was Holly Springs, generally a little bit better than we were, but we were both good, and so they were like anytime we played them, it was like 1-0, 2-1. There's a lot of those games, but I think we only went head to head, pitcher versus pitcher once. I couldn't tell you who won, honestly, but I can tell you that I faced him as a hitter and I faced him as a hitter when he's pitching, and I faced him when I'm pitching and he's hitting. A lot. We probably played each other. We would have played twice a year for 4 years, so we played each other at least 8 times in high school. But yeah, he was a good hitter too. He was 2A his freshman year at NC State too. So he was hard to hit off of though.
Was the changeup that good back then, or is that a product of Coach Chrysler?
He was always good, man. But when he got to NC State, it just got a lot better. I feel like, but he was just like strike throwing. Like his strikeout to walk ratio was something stupid his senior year, like 70 something to 4. I don't know. Like he just would go out there and throw a million strikes, and he'd throw complete games every Friday night and win Conference Player of the Year every year. Like he was a beast.
Well, do you remember when he committed? Was he as young as you were?
Yeah, it's a funny story because I went on my visit, and so we started in the coach's office, and then I went on a tour, and we met on the tour. We met another recruit, and it was Matt. He was on a different visit at the same time, same day, and I was like, oh, funny seeing you here. So I committed probably a month before he did. He took longer. He was thinking about a few other schools. I couldn't tell you which ones now, but I was just basically begging him, like, dude, let's go. Come to NC State, let's go.
That's cool. So the last 2 years anyway of your high school career, y'all both were NC State commits.
Yeah.
I got a couple of questions, Sam, from some folks text me this week. One of the questions I got for you, and I I think this is an interesting question. So you hit a little bit as a freshman. You were a two-way guy. What do you think you would have hit if Coach Avent had to let you swing? I mean, all pitchers think they can hit. Well, what would you have hit if you had got to swing the bat your entire career at NC State?
Man, I don't know. Probably about 240. Nah, I don't know. I could have hit probably as high as about like probably about 300, but I would have hit zero. I might have had 2 career home runs. Like I was a strictly contact guy my entire hitting career. Like if you go back and watch those hits, like none of them were hit hard in the College World Series. They were all like just like poked and found holes.
C&I singles.
Yeah, I was like not a strikeout guy, but I wasn't gonna go yard.
Were you kind of amped up to like? I mean, I know you like felt terrible that your comrades, were unable to go in the College World Series, and you guys are down to 13 guys. But like, being a competitor, being a guy that hit your whole life, were you kind of amped up to go get some ABs in the College World Series? I mean, was there anything exciting about that, or were you terrified because you had to go face Kumar Rocker throwing 100?
No, I was fired up. Like I was like, please. I think it was Austin Murr who first went to coach and was like I'll play left field, put Sam at first, and
Golly.
because I hadn't even thought about it honestly. Um, and then Murr came running down and was like, hey, like you want to hit? Like go get some swings. And I was like, let's go. Let's
Golly,
go.
man, what a deal.
That'd be great. I'd love to. And yeah, I don't know. I hadn't picked up a bat in months, and I had no idea how I was gonna go. But like, just like riding a bike, like pick it up and took some hacks, and it's like
Jesus
I'm
Christ.
gonna be so ready to go on this first pitch because I knew it was gonna be a fastball right in the middle, and sure enough, it was. But I was way too like I was expecting 95, like, and it was like 94, but I was way too early on it because I knew I was gonna go in there and swing at the first pitch. Then I didn't.
Sam sounds like me when I go to the damn indoor cage with my son and they're throwing 45 and I square that thing up. And I say it's like riding a bike. My God.
Yeah.
Right, hitting 94 is like riding a bike. You get time.
You just got to be on time.
It's a shame. It's a shame that the big leagues got, the NL. You're in the NL with the Phillies. It's a shame that they added the DH, man. We just wanted to watch you rake.
I know. I would love that.
It is kind of interesting though. Like you look at like high level recruits. I mean, Carlos was a great hitter. Obviously he didn't get a ton of ABs at NC State, but I think he DH'd some early in his career.
Yeah. He probably would have gotten a lot more if he wasn't so good of a pitcher. Like,
Yeah.
they just really wanted to protect him.
Yeah, I remember when Carlos was facing Jameis Winston. Winston was pitching. I can't remember what happened, but I do remember a pretty iconic scene for college baseball.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So in your career, it's another question I had sent to us. In your career, Sam, especially, I mean, it probably started, I would think, maybe even back when you were in high school, but now it's a huge deal. Like, how big have analytics become in pitching? I know that NC State's investing a lot of money in a pitching lab. I assume that the Phillies organization probably, have every tool in the world already. How has that changed over your career? And like, what have you learned from that? What do you glean from that? Or are you still more old school where I'm just trying to go out and, paint corners and make good pitches? And how much attention do you pay to that? Cause it's definitely changed the game.
Yeah, 100%. And like in general, I'm a numbers guy. Like I was a finance major. I did a business analytics grad certificate. So like I'm a numbers guy and I like numbers in baseball. I think they're incredibly useful. But what I think we do so well at NC State is we combine the feel of the game with the analytics. We know we have to accept the fact that you have to look at the numbers because that's how you're going to figure out, is this pitch good? Is this pitch going to play well against other hitters? Like, how can we develop new pitches? How do we attack hitters? You have to look at all that stuff. But then what Coach Avon does so well is he just goes by the feel of the game and he goes with his gut, which, like, regardless of whether you think you're sitting in the dugout and you're like, man, what is going on right now? Like, it just always finds a way of working out. His gut feeling is usually right. And so I think we do a good job of just combining those. But in general, like, I love it. Like, I love throwing bullpens and looking back, looking at the numbers, trying to figure out how I can improve these things, how I can improve my arsenal. And that's probably, honestly, when I'm done playing baseball, what I'm going to do, if I have any choice, is to get in on the analytics side of the game, front office side. That stuff's really interesting.
That's
pretty neat. So
no, I was just going to say, we were talking about that in the last week or two, and I was saying, the numbers and analytics are great, but if you don't know how to use them right, then it's like anything else. It's just statistics at that point. But you gotta know how to use the data and put it to work for you. So yeah, that would be pretty interesting given that unique skill set that you have.
So Sam, if we were to hand you a printout right now, like what would you look at? I mean, obviously velo is important, but if someone gave you, you go throw a 50 pitch bullpen, and you get, all the analytics. Like, what are you most interested in? I think that'd be pretty fascinating to kind of
Yeah.
pick your brain.
I'm looking at the velocity, obviously, the induced vertical break, horizontal break, release point. I want to make sure that I'm throwing all of the pitches from the same slot, and that I'm not dropping my arm slot on certain pitches. And then I compare the breaks, like horizontal and vertical, of each pitch, and like there's a certain way that you want them to look when they're on like a chart. Basically, you don't want any two of them to be too close together. You don't want your fastball to be like, there's what they call dead zone, which is a certain set of numbers. Um, like some people have ride fastballs and some people have sinkers. You don't want to be in that middle area, basically. So you're always looking at that. Um, that's pretty much what I look at. I like a lot of people like spin rate. I'm not a huge spin rate guy. But yeah, it's cool to look at for sure.
While we're discussing this, thinking a little bit about this year's NC State team. Obviously we talked about Duden and the overpowering fastball, and obviously a 90-something mile an hour slider is just unbelievable. Besides that being pretty obvious, what would you say, um, analytics wise, for the guys left on the team? What would just be your opinion of some of those? I mean, you obviously have seen some of that data on those guys. Going through this past season, a lot of the guys are back, but just what's some of your thoughts on some of those guys' numbers and how that plays out?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like Derek Smith's slider was so effective last year. And like if you were to look at it analytically, it would be like a good slider. And you're like, okay, like that's a good slider. But his played so incredibly well. Like people just could not pick it up for whatever reason. And so that's where like you get back to like, this analytics versus like reality. Like what are you seeing? But obviously that was effective. You look at like Cam Wimbish, sophomore this year. He's got a really good fastball, and he started throwing a curveball that just goes basically straight down. Like it doesn't have any left or right movement, which is he's throwing it at 88 miles an hour or whatever, which is absurd, and it's just going straight down. He's got really good analytical numbers, and as long as he's in the strike zone, I think he's going to be really effective. Those are just two examples of guys.
So Sam, with all your coaching, I mean, you go back to high school, and then I know Coach Chrysler. You spent a lot of time with the last 5 years in college. What would you say? This was one of the questions we got, because we talked a little bit last week with Brandon Butterworth about he was one of the first ones to say that my high school coaches made a big difference in my life, and in my career trajectory. We always want to shout out the high school coaches here. What would you say, early on as a young player, and especially in this NIL age where it's getting harder and harder to get recruited as a high school kid? Your high school coach, what did you kind of learn along the way that kind of helped propel you to being a Division I baseball player and help shape your career?
Yeah, my high school coach, he was a good coach, and he'd been doing it for a long time, and now he helps out with the Holly Springs Salamanders now. But he just, he put me on the team my freshman year and threw me into the fire, and I was hitting like 4-hole my freshman year, and I sucked. I hit like 140, I think. Uh, I pitched pretty well, but yeah, he just threw me in the fire. But like in this day and age, like sure, NIL stuff, it's harder to get recruited, but at the same time, if you're good enough, guys will find you. Like, um, I never believed in all of these. Like, you have to go to all these camps and do all these showcase events. Like, if you're good, coaches will come find you. The world is connected enough now that's the case, and it's really good when guys have good high school coaches to help them out with that. People who have connections, know the game, like can coach the game, can teach the game. And so I benefited from that for sure. I know that's unfortunately not the case for everybody, probably, but I still do think like with all of the social media and stuff out there, all of the connections that are out there, like if you're good enough, people are going to find you.
I think that's really interesting you say that because I don't know if you knew, Sam. I was a high school coach for 10 years and been around baseball a long time. And, I actually, older, one of the coaches at our high school used to tell players that all the time. Our football coach actually used to say, if you're good enough, they'll find you. If you're good enough, they'll find you. And I think, that baseball has, now it's kind of got a reputation of having like a barrier to entry because it's an expensive sport. When you have a $50 helmet and $100 pair of spikes and a $400 baseball bat and a $300 glove, and it's hard to get into the game of baseball, if especially if you're even middle class families struggle to try to go and put their kids on the best travel team or travel over the country. And I used to tell my players that I'm like, damn it, if you throw 95, why are you going to a perfect game this weekend? Like it really doesn't matter. Like you throw 95, they're gonna come watch you. If you throw 95, you don't got to go to East Cobb to get seen. Like they'll come watch you play at the Sandlot
Yeah.
if you throw 95.
Yeah.
So that was kind of refreshing to hear you say that because it is hard. I think that for parents now, there's so much pressure to find the right travel ball team or the right showcase team or make the state games or there's so many different things. And I mean those obviously a lot of those events can put you on a stage to be in front of the right people, but I wholeheartely agree with what you said that if you're good enough, they're going to find you.
Yeah. The other part of that too is like sure, if you're good enough, they will find you, but also if you're not good enough, like there are so many chances now, like baseball, there's so many levels. I'm working out with guys who have played pro ball now for 5 years and like went to D3 schools and JUCOs, and now it's a transfer portal. You can go somewhere small and then transfer to the big Power 5 school that you wanted to go to out of high school. Like it's sure, if you're good enough, then you can make it, but there's a lot of chances.
I think the boys over in Chapel Hill are actually going to have an outfielder this year start for them that played at Wesleyan. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he transferred from Wesleyan. Had a huge year last year. He had like 21 home runs. I think he played 4 years at Wesleyan. And I saw Osuna today, which I'm sure you faced off many times. You can probably give us his scout report, but he played for Carolina for a few years, and something with the NCAA rules, he had transferred to Division II Tampa, which is an elite Division II program, but was trying to get an extra year, and the Volunteers have added him to the Tennessee roster with some of the recent rule changes.
Yeah. It's a great deal for him.
All right, Wesley, you said you had one for late in the show. Let it rip, baby.
Yeah. I think that Sam again, he's unique because he's similar to how we are in terms of grew up an NC State fan, so obviously Sam, I take from that you probably are a big basketball, football, baseball fan, all the above, and a big part of what we've talked about on a lot of our episodes since we started last year is the resources for baseball. Obviously we all four of us wish we had a different circumstance at the Doak compared to some of the the competitors in the ACC and SEC, and honestly, Campbell and UNCW, some maybe no not Power Four conferences. So if you look at it, for Adam and Kyle and I and a few of our other friends, constantly we're going back and forth during the week when we probably should be focused on improving our efficiencies of our business and not NC State. But it is what it is. It's a sickness, a fever, right? So what do we have to do as a program the next 10 years? How do we overcome, for the last, at least I'm 37 years old. we're not much different now than we were then. What do we need to do as an overall athletics program um, in the next 10 years?
Yeah, that's my favorite subject to talk about is the Doak upgrades. Um, but yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to win when you have facilities that are well below the average, especially in like the ACC. Um, but I've always said, and I believe it. Um, our coaching staff does an incredible job to be able to recruit and then develop with what we have here compared to what everywhere else has. And it's going to get better. Like they're working on it right now. They're building the facility right now, like as we speak. So it's going, and I think the trips to Omaha were huge in helping that. Um, Last year, though, like as an athletics program as a whole, was maybe the best year that NC State has ever had. Uh, I know in my lifetime, probably. Um, maybe winning a national championship in '83.
We're twice as old as you, but unfortunately in our lifetime too, Sam.
Yeah,
It was the
you
greatest year we've ever had, baby.
Yeah.
you speak for the whole group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun to be a part of as an NC State fan. So I think we're in a good place. Obviously, it hasn't been a super promising year in the major sports, but the recent success has been there, and I think we just need to keep it up. And it'll come.
Yeah, I think again, one of the frustrations for us is kind of 21 was a time where we thought maybe could have been built, we could have built more quicker. I think it's how quickly it's happening because as we're making these changes, other schools, baseball programs in the country seem to do it in the off season, whereas ours seem to be, 3, 5 years down the road. I think that's where a lot of the opportunities maybe are for us and one of the reasons why we do this podcast is to, try to bring some awareness to the fan base that, hey, man, we have a not even a top 25 program, what we believe is a top 10 program in the country, and we need, that we need the fans to support it. And and for me, honestly, I'm one of the worst in terms of every year. I live in Wilmington, so it's not exactly easy for me to go to a midweek game. But we buy season tickets and then maybe we're not there. And some of the other fan bases, those seats are filled, every game. So, I know there's no answer to this other than, it would be nice if the Doak was packed out, even for midweek games in the early series, maybe not just for the Carolina or the Clemson series. So I just think that's not a question. That's just maybe we get to the point, somewhere down the road. And honestly, if you think about college baseball, to me, the growth in that over the last few years has been tremendous. So maybe we're working our way up to that point.
Yeah, I think so, and I think we saw a lot of it. The regional weekend this past year, that was the best I've ever seen the Doak, and the fans came out that weekend and they really supported us, and we went 3-0 against three regional teams, and so I think you see what kind of an impact that has, and I hope that the fans see that too, and are kind of inspired by that, and want to get out there.
No, that was electric, man. Now, I was there the whole weekend, and it's really neat to be able to show up to the ballpark in that environment, and how passionate our fans are. I'll say, and I don't care. You can go anywhere in the country. If you can pack an NC State ballpark with NC State fans, they're as passionate as any fan base in the country. I don't care if you go to LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M. It doesn't matter. If you go to Carter Finley when it's packed, which Carter Finley is usually packed, but if you go to Carter Finley and to sell out a big game, I mean, it's raucous. It's going to be incredible environment. Same thing at, even the PNC, even though that arena is probably twice the size of what those fellas need. When that place is packed, I mean, it's an incredible atmosphere. But, the same thing about the Doak. The one thing I do wish is that is that, our folks would show up, when we're playing Pittsburgh or when we're playing, a 47-degree day against, somebody who's maybe a cellar dweller in the ACC, because we just have so much respect for Coach Avent. Coach Avent, honestly, being a guy, I mean, even like you, Sam, a guy that's had his ups and downs, is, not always, been their very best. I know you talked about going through injury earlier and coming back and not throwing as good as you want to throw. Well, you look at Coach Avent's career, he's had some ups and downs, but if you think, like kind of like you're 26-10 at the bottom of the stat line, Coach Avent, he gets way too much damn heat. I don't care what anybody says. Like, you can sit there and tell me, oh, well, he lost in the ACC champion. Like, get the hell out of here. That guy has been in Omaha twice playing in a damn ballpark that's not as good as the Holly Springs Salamanders. Like, I don't want to hear it.
3 times.
I'm sorry, 3 times. 3 times. Damn it, I'm sorry. 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. And the guy loves NC State. Obviously, your guy grew up as an NC State fan. You love them just like we do. We got to support that man, and that's not to throw shade at anyone else, who's a coach on staff for NC State athletics. But, just like, we said earlier about you, Sam, being just an absolute grinder. You're kind of the picture of an NC State guy. Bring your lunch pail to work and get after it every day. And that I kind of think that's what this program is. You epitomize that, and Coach Avent certainly too. So I guess that leads me into my next question. What is it like? You talked about a guy playing, his gut's pretty intuitive when you've done it for as long as he has. So I was at the baseball banquet last year, and me and Adam and Wes here had we went and toured the facilities and spent some time with some of the coaches. And I was like, Coach Avent's been doing this, for 40 years. Like, what? I just can't imagine a guy that's been doing it that long, sitting there talking about launch angle or spin rate. He's a veteran. Like, I can't imagine the reset that takes when you start talking about stuff like that. But what is your take on Coach Avent and what he's meant to the NC State baseball program, the consistency he's had, and then 3 trips to Omaha?
Yeah, he's done so much for the school and the program. Won his 1,000th game, I think it was, this past year. That's a lot. That's a lot of wins.
That really is insane to think about.
Yeah, like when you're playing 56 games a year, that's 20 years right there of wins. Just winning every game. He does so much, and he loves NC State. He loves the school, with everything. And baseball is all he's got. He's got a wife and he's got a dog, and baseball is his life. And he comes to the field every day, and he makes us get better, and he pushes us and to be a better group of individuals, and to be a cohesive team. He's so good at team building. It's incredible how much the teams have liked each other. And I think that's credit to him, the culture that he builds. And he's a big reason for why I kind of see myself the same way, like a grinder, like you said, like NC State. The epitome of what we're trying to be is just guys who go out there and don't take anything for granted. We're just working hard every day, and that's what he is, and he means so much to me and all of his former players. Just love him to death.
All right, we'll go a little round robin here, and then we'll let you go, Sam. We've had you for about an hour, but wanted to talk a little bit about this year's team. I know Adam and Wes probably got some questions, so I'll start with Mr. Litch, and we'll bounce a few off of you about this 2025 roster, and we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, any insight, Sam, you can give us what your thoughts are on this team. I know you've, again, a lot of returning guys, especially on the pitching staff. We've talked about that a couple of times already. Really excited to see this year's team pitch, and just you mentioned a couple with Wimbush and Derek Smith earlier. What any other thoughts you got on this year's staff? I mean, I think it's probably worth the hype, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think so personally. I think Heath Andrews is a guy who might have a good year. He's certainly looked good when I've been out there. Andrew Schaffner, he's been there for a few years now and hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities, but when he's on, is dominant. Ryan Marone got a bunch of innings out of the bullpen last year. I don't know if he's going to start or be back in the bullpen, but he's looked good. He just continues to get people out. Like, man, I don't even know. There's so many names on this staff that, like, it's such a good problem to have because unfortunately guys are going to get hurt. Unfortunately, guys are not going to pitch as well as they want to, and somebody else has to step up. And when you have that level of talent, it's much easier to fill those holes. Offensively is the question mark. Like, I'm a pitcher, so I don't do offense. Coach Hart always finds a way to get those guys to hit, and so I think they'll be just fine.
What about Van Dam? What do you hear from him? What's your thoughts on him coming back?
Yeah, I hear he's working really hard. He feels good. I've talked to him. He feels great. Like, he's in the training room all the time. Hasn't had any setbacks yet, and so I think if that continues, there's a real chance at the end of the year that
it can.
That's a big if.
Sure.
That's a tough.
It was so late.
Yeah,
so late and tough. I mean, but man, he was really special at times last year when everybody else was trying to find their way out there.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a get, though, if you can just find 96 out of the bullpen midseason. I mean, that's pretty good. We'll take it.
From a guy who's only been doing it for like 3 years. Like, yeah, the raw talent is just off the charts. And so that'd be great if they could get him back.
Wesley?
Yeah, I think I'm good. I mean, more just a comment than anything. No question. Just, I know you said that, your interest in after your professional career is front office, and I hope you consider, NC State as a front office, especially now with, how, collegiate athletics have become a business. We can't have enough people like you that love NC State and want, the school to be successful. So I hope that's an option for you, after baseball.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that would be great. Like, you see guys, GM roles popping up all over like the football world. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that comes to baseball soon. So
yeah, absolutely.
That would be, yeah. I love this school. So
we'll tell them to hold 17 for you.
yeah, right.
I heard you say you don't have a whole lot of insight on offense, but I do want to ask you a question, and I'll let you answer however you want. But we talked to AMAC and we talked to Butters the last couple weeks. I saw on Pack Pride today that there was an article about Drew Lamphere. Do you have any outside picks to click? And I'd even like to hear your take on Drew Lamphere, because everything I hear, that guy just works his ass off, and he sounds like an NC State guy. So
yeah, he's the best. I love Drew. He works so hard. He came in and as a freshman and redshirted, and like honestly didn't look that good. Like, didn't really think he would be ever really an important player on this team, but he's set up this year to be a really important bat in the lineup. And him, and I don't know how they'll do it catching wise with Sosa too. I don't know if they'll split time or if one will get more innings than the other, but they're both really good back there. They're both, just like Cozart was and like Patrick Bailey was before him. Really good catchers, and they're good hitters too. I feel like Sosa's going to have, obviously he's not really outside the box, but I just watch him swing. And I think Alex Sosa, he's going to have a good year. And I think they need him to. I think, he lost a lot of power. And so they need a guy like that to step up and hit some homers.
So being your whole career a part of the Battery, and you just mentioned Patrick Bailey. You mentioned Jacob Cozart. You mentioned, Sosa now. And I know Bo Rob and Coach Hart get a ton of credit for our hitters. Obviously, what Coach Chrysler did last year with the bullpen was pretty incredible, finding some guys that early in the year. They look like totally different people down the stretch. I guess, being a part of the battery, you can probably answer this question, but what is it about NC State that we always seem to have someone good behind the plate? Who's working with those guys? Who deserves that credit?
Yeah, and I forgot to mention Luca Tresh too.
Oh yeah,
there.
Luca Tresh as well.
Going to big league camp this year. But yeah, it was Coach Hart, and then it was Brett Austin for a few years working with the catchers, and then back to Coach Hart. So I mean, Coach Hart worked with Brett, I'm pretty sure, when he was playing about a decade ago. So, I think it's, I don't know what Coach Hart can't do as a coach. Like he could probably be a pitching coach too.
Wesley, we're going to ask him what you asked Butters last week. How many more years is coach? Go ahead, Wesley.
Yeah, do you think we have 5 more with Coach Avent?
Man, I don't know. I know he really wants to see the facility get done, but
maybe that's the delay. Maybe that's why there's a delay.
Baseball is that guy's entire life, and man, I don't know what he'd do without it. So, who knows?
Well, Sam, we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
If they put 17 on the wall at Doak Field, you won't hear any complaints from this crowd. A hell of a career. So many people who follow Wolfpack baseball, are going to remember you forever. I think it's a testament to your hard work. Obviously, what you did on the field, but I really appreciate you spending some time with us, and wish you the absolute best in pro ball.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and thank you very much.
All right, guys, we'll wrap it up. Go Pack.
Yeah, go Pack. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it.
Go Pack. Yeah, thank you guys.